Howdy, and welcome to another episode of Adult Onset Horsemanship. I'm your host, Daniel Dolphin. I hear way too often from people, "Oh, I didn't know you were doing that." So I figured I better get a little better about putting stuff out there and letting the world know what we're up to. It's been a very, very busy year. So as this podcast will come out the second Monday of August, here's what our rest of the year looks like. We've got masterclass, cohort, hotel, and the hotel, golf, all that, it just organizes things. So they're all the same content, although we do update it every cohort. We add a little something generally. So hotel just tells me it's this group and they started on this date and end on this date. That's all. They're all the same. So that kicks off August 14th, this coming Friday. So not a whole lot of time to get registered if you're interested in that. If you really want to take your bits and bitting knowledge to the next level, don't think there's another source on the planet that you can get that's going to be better than this one. This will be our last cohort until next year. So jump in now. The water's fine. Later in August, I will be one of the guest judges at the Appalachian Trainers Face-Off put on by Heart of Phoenix Equine Rescue. I was a coach for them last year, giving some monthly support to the people participating, or 6 or 7 of them anyway. This really is one of the good rescues, Heart of Phoenix Equine Rescue. The event is somewhat like a Mustang makeover with different levels. Some of the horses are being halter broke. Some of them have already been riding. Some of them are started in riding. Just all depends. This event's somewhat like a Mustang makeover in that the trainers have a few months to get the horses going, culminating in the show and ultimately a sale to rehome the horses and raise funds for the rescue. Your support there is greatly appreciated. Link in the show notes. We'll be heading to the UK after that. September 4th and 6th, the Masterson Method International Gathering at Stow-on-the-Wold will take place. This will be my second time presenting there. Jim's group is always a blast to be around, learn from, and present to. This is truly a beautiful, idyllic setting, and I absolutely love going there. It's in the Cotswolds, and when you think of England, the castles and all, like, this is that place in your head. We then head to North England, a place I haven't been before. We're going to do a benefit clinic for the charity organization Here for Horses on the 12th and 13th of September at their headquarters. Bear with me here. Farley Farm, Hunwick, Crook, Durham, United Kingdom. I have no idea what the postal system of addresses is for the UK. It makes no sense to me whatsoever, but I assume if you're in that part of the world, then that does make some sense to you. We will also be doing another really cool event following that clinic on the 15th. Here for Horses has set up Beyond the Bit, the Great Horse Training Debate with Ben Atkinson, William Micklem, inventor of the Micklem bridle and many, many other attributes, and then myself. It really does sound like the setup for a joke. An Englishman, an Irishman, and a Cajun walk into a barn. Anyway, we'll be discussing, defending, and possibly fencing. We'll see how this goes and how amicable it stays. I'm not too sure, but it does sound like a really good time. Tickets are on sale, and again, we'll have a link in the show notes to it. When we return from the UK, we'll have our last U.S. clinic of the year that has any openings in it. That is at Sand Hill Stable in Mantua, Ohio, just southeast of Cleveland. Should be a really cool clinic. And like I say, it's the last chance you would have to ride with me this year in the U.S. After that, when we go to Shining River Ranch in Lewisburg, North Carolina, we go back there. We've already been there this year. That one is full, but there's room for auditors. After that, we head to New Zealand to present at Equifest, and then we have a couple of clinics on the South Island of New Zealand, followed by 6 clinics in Australia. 3 are in Victoria, 1 is near Adelaide, South Australia, and then we pop up to Queensland, kind of southeast Queensland, for the last 2. So this has been a really exciting year. I really appreciate all the opportunities that have come our way. There's no doubt that this one has been a professional blessing beyond any that we have had so far. So thank you all very much for the support and encouragement and patronizing our stuff. It really, this is how we make a living, so we certainly appreciate it. But ultimately, my purpose is to help people and horses, and like I said, we've been able to do that this year like no other. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you. Okay, sorry to have taken so much time for house cleaning at the beginning of this. Now please enjoy this episode with Josh Milburn.
A little house cleaning to start. We have had and will continue to have the mock sponsors for each episode. I know they're fan favorites. Now that we have hit our 100th episode, we have got some exciting news. The Adult Onset Horsemanship Podcast has a real sponsor. As most of you know, I have and maintain facial hair. For Christmas this past year, my wife got me some mustache wax for my growing mustache. I have tried other products and they have left me wanting. Death Grip Mustache Wax has been head and shoulders above the others I've tried. I was so impressed and pleased that I reached out to them to see if they'd be interested in an arrangement, and they were. I have to say, just like their products, the company has been very easy to deal with and does what they say they're going to do. Plus, skulls. I mean, am I right? So, if you're interested in high quality men's grooming products, I can recommend them wholeheartedly and even offer you a discount on their products. You can find links in the show notes and the discount code written out, but if you'll go to their website and use discount code AOHPOD, all one word, you can save a nice chunk of change and still get a very high quality product that won't let your whiskers down. They even have combs, oils, and a coffee mug designed to keep your lip cover nice and dry. Treat yourself or the man in your life to competition-winning waxes that offer style and make eating and drinking a whole lot easier. Guaranteed to make your man 50% sexier. So check out Death Grip, mustache waxes, and men's grooming products.
Our guest today is Josh Milburn of Milburn Equine in the UK. Josh is a leading neuromuscular natural balance dentist, and Milburn Equine brings a transformative approach to holistic equine dentistry, focusing on restoring the horse's mouth to its natural balance. This unique and whole horse method has far-reaching benefits for well-being and performance, helping horses move, feel, and function at their best. I feel I should also mention here that Josh is also a fully certified farrier in the UK, so he comes at this from more than just the dentistry perspective. His work supports improved hoof quality and posture, enhanced proprioception and freer movement, better gut health and reduced ulcer risk, fewer issues like shoe loss, and stronger overall athletic performance. I'm going to be very pleased to meet Josh in person as we co-present at the Masterson Method International Gathering at Stow-in-the-Wold here in September. All right. Well, Josh Milburn, we've been waiting a few months to have this conversation. We're going to be co-presenting at the Masterson Method International Gathering at Stow-on-the-Wold in the UK here in a little while, and I'm looking forward to meeting you firsthand and having a beer with you or something like that.
Yeah, but definitely looking forward to that.
This will be a fun conversation, pre-game sort of thing, nonetheless. Yeah. So, well, before we get into the serious questions, we got to break the ice. So, Josh, everybody goes through the icebreaker questions, and be warned, these are for points and prizes, so you definitely want to be on your A game here, okay?
I'll do my best.
If you were a Jedi, what % chance is there that you would misuse the Force?
100%. 100%. Make life easy for yourself so you can make life easy for everybody else.
There you go. Morning or evening?
I would say I'm a morning person, but my kids and other half are more evening people, so I just get dragged all the way through. So it's early mornings and late nights tend to be my thing, unfortunately. So yeah.
Well, as we're beginning this discussion at 9 p.m. your time, I was genuinely hoping you were going to say that you were a night owl on that one.
Oh no, I can keep rolling for a good few hours yet. I'll be all right. Yeah.
Does pineapple belong on pizza?
Pizza is possibly my favorite food. So if there was only pineapple pizza available, 100%. But yeah, I'll eat pretty much anything. I'm quite an easy fella to feed, so I would accept it.
So what would be your pizza order? Just if you're just ordering it for you, you don't have to worry about the wife, the kids, anything. This is Josh's pizza. What are you going for?
Oh, spicy meat feast. Bit of spice,
Hell
plenty of meat on it. Yeah, just something you can get stuck into.
Absolutely. Give me the jalapenos, the anchovies, every last bit of it. Yes, sir.
There you go.
If you could have any superpower, which one would you choose?
Oh, now then. Talking to horses, if that can be one. Communicating with animals in general, but talking to horses would do for me. If that's a superpower. Some people seem to have it, but yeah.
I think it would be. I think we can definitely understand a lot, but I almost think it would be scary if we really knew everything that they were thinking. Same with people.
100%.
If you could crawl into your wife's head, that you'd probably be divorced in a week, right? That would be the scariest thing.
Quite happy over here in the dark, actually, with that side of it. But yeah.
How do blind people know when they are done wiping?
I don't even know if I can answer that. As R-rated as this might be, I think that's past my pay grade, that one.
One day somebody's going to be able to explain that to me. So, is there any question out there? This would be a horse-related question, I guess, that you just can't seem to find the answer to. So, are you on a quest on some information out there currently?
On a quest, just general knowledge. It's the journey, not the answer, isn't it? So it just keeps getting better. I'm trying to push my horsemanship a bit more, and always trying to get that a little bit better. But I wouldn't say there was a question per se, other than how do you sit a good seated trot, which just seems to rattle my bones. So I was brought up English, so we rise a trot, we post a trot. So. Mm-hmm. Whereas I much prefer a saddle with a horn on it now. So yeah, seating the trot's not just the easiest thing in the world for me.
So I hesitate to ask this next one of you because I know what the laws are like where you are there. But do you carry a knife?
Obviously, the correct answer is no. But the kids do laugh because there's probably 8 or 10 different knives in the truck. I've normally got one in my pocket. I've just fastened one to the side of my saddle because I got a new saddle, knife holder. Mm-hmm. So I've generally got a blade with me.
That's one of the things. Like for being around horses, I consider it a basic safety feature. And when I'm in the UK, I feel naked without my knife on me, just in case you ever have to, one of those emergencies.
You're not a boot wearer and you're not riding, but a very safe place is a boot knife. If you get one with a belt clip, you can just stuff it in your boot. And in the UK, generally, nobody looks inside your cowboy boots. So,
okay. So here would be my honest thought about that. Hypothetically speaking, of course, whether or not the security scanning the bag would question the knife obviously not in the carry-on, but in the checked baggage, whether I could get there with one in the first place. But
I'm not so
anyway.
Sure. I did have a Swiss Army knife in my wash bag one day when I was trying to go through security in the airport, just on a short haul. So I had it in my bag. Didn't even think it was a knife as such. It was just a pair of scissors and a corkscrew and everything else. So that got confiscated. I was most upset.
Well, last time we were there, we got stopped on the bag scan for I have little scissors that I use to clip my nose hairs. And that caused a full unpacking of the bag in the airport and the whole 9 yards to find those. And then they had to measure them, and they were just under the line of how long they could be. And then we were fine. Yeah, a little pair of scissors that's the biggest security check I've ever had was over that.
You've got to be thankful for security, but sometimes you do think it's a bit ridiculous.
Absolutely. Yeah. If you could bring back any old word, like dandy, gross as in a quantity, curmudgeon, or etc., what would it be? And y'all do have some very colorful language over there. So the
yeah,
bar's high for you, Josh.
I would say we have some good ones. There's probably quite a few in use at the minute, which I wouldn't class as bringing back. Now you've caught me out with that one. You have definitely caught me out with that one. I'd have to have a think on that and get back to you.
Yeah. If it pops up in your head 7 minutes from now, let us know. All right. What would you have been professionally if not an equine dentist?
Well, my employment career has been colourful. I was in the military. I've worked in agriculture. I've worked in building. I've worked in all sorts. But I was a farrier for 18 years before retiring from the shoeing side of it. I still trim a little bit, but before retiring from the shoeing side of it to set on for dentistry. So if this type of dentistry had never crossed my path, I dare say I'd still be shoeing horses.
Okay. Well, that's fair enough. And they are connected more so than most people would think. So we'll get into that as well.
Yeah.
Let's see. That's a uniquely American question. I'll skip that one for you. How do you like your steak, and what cut do you like?
I'm a T-bone man if I can get one. Ribeye is my standard because getting a good T-bone is not so easy. Yeah, just a nice medium rare. Nice bit of salad with it. Nothing too fancy. Salt and pepper, that's all I need.
Okay. Do you have any feelings on how tablets were replaced by scrolls and scrolls were replaced by books, and now we scroll through books on tablets?
Stopping the kids scrolling through books on tablets would be my thing, but yeah. Going back to hammer and chisel would do me good.
What do you always have too much or not enough of?
Work. It's got to be work. Too much to get through and never enough to pay the bills. That's the problem, especially in this industry.
It's I don't know if it's the same there, but for us, it's kind of feast or famine. You either can't get to all of it, or you're twiddling your thumbs wishing that somebody would send you an email or something.
That's it. And everyone wants you there yesterday. That's part of the problem with it.
What is the best horse movie?
I'm a bit of a fan of Australia, if I'm honest. I wouldn't really call that much of a horse movie, but some good scenes of galloping across the outback in Australia is not a bad one.
All right, very good. I'm not sure I've seen that one.
No, it's probably a bit modern. If I had to pick a spaghetti western style, it would be The Searchers.
Okay,
good old John Wayne.
Choice.
Yeah, no, good old John Wayne. But yeah, Australia for the wild card.
Is that with Nicole Kidman and
yes, it is.
The guy that plays Wolverine?
I was just about to say Wolverine, Hugh Jackman.
Yep. Yeah, there we go. There we go.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
All right. Are you decisive or indecisive?
Once I make a decision, I'm decisive. I tend to stick to it, and unless a better opinion comes up, I'm fairly certain of myself. But I'm quite happy to listen to other opinions, and if I feel like a different one's better, I'm quite happy to change my mind.
Okay. Cold showers or cold food forever?
Cold food. I hate cold showers with a passion. I know you're a cold shower man, but I cannot stand them. Plunge pools and things like that just upset my whole. Awful.
This is one of those things where I feel like everybody has to check out the video on this and see Josh. He looks like a guy that could break stones with his hands. And so like I could see you totally the Viking just emerging out of the water. So that one caught me a little off guard, but hey, it's all fair.
I can jump in a pool, but I'll squeal like a little girl if you spray cold water on me when I'm in the shower. So
how big should a horse be?
The worse my knees are getting, the shorter the horses are getting. I currently ride a 16 hand. I've got a 15 hand, and yeah, I reckon by the time I hit 50, it'll be 14 hands. So No need
I
to
use
send
a
me
mounting
pictures.
block. I use a mounting block all the time now, and I'm not ashamed of it at all. Happens to the best of us.
Oh, definitely, definitely.
Would you tell us something unexpected about you?
Oh, something unexpected. Well, I hate cold showers. I do look like a Viking, but I hate cold showers. What else is unexpected about me? There's probably too many pictures of me in pink cowboy hats and high heels from college days than I'd like to admit. But
So you haven't mentioned this, but I like you. If I'm looking at a picture of you, I'm going, yeah, this guy definitely played rugby. Am I right there? Do we have some rugby stories? Or
well, yeah. So I did play a bit of rugby. I've got two brothers, one younger, one older. I'm the biggest out of the three of us, but one played for Scotland Rugby Union and the other played semi-professional rugby league. And I was, as much as I played, I was never a massive sportsman. I'm more of an individual sport. Did a bit of martial arts and stuff when I was younger and things like that. But yeah, I can play. I don't though.
I understand exactly. I played a few team sports, including rugby in college, and I loved it. But I much preferred the individual type stuff myself. So, how long do you dunk a cookie in milk or tea? I guess maybe in your case.
Oh, you can't put biscuits in tea. It's awful. I can dunk it in milk.
Okay.
Nothing upsets me more than getting the bottom of a cup of tea and finding cookie crumbs and all sorts in the bottom. So, but yeah, I'm a tea fiend. So hot tea is my beverage of choice. But
Okay.
no, I'm not a one for dunking biscuits in them. Cookies.
So I will say, admittedly, I don't know if the tea choices are the same between the U.S. and the U.K. I'm sure y'all have a very different variety, but I also like tea quite a bit. I drink more tea in the wintertime than I do coffee. I like the fact that I can make a single cup. I don't have to make like a whole pot, and all that. So what kind of tea do you drink?
Yorkshire tea. Yorkshire tea is the only one.
Okay. So I'm not sure what that is, but I'll ask you to introduce me to it here in a month when we meet face to face. How about that?
I never leave the house without a box of it. So when I'm traveling around the country, I always have my own box of tea with me. So yeah, there'll be plenty. I'll bring a box down.
So I actually carry the little individual tea bags in the foil wraps. I have those in my shaving kit. So wherever I travel, I actually, there's an unexpected about me. I have tea with me at all times as well. Is there a skill or technique with a horse that you have seen in someone else and don't have, but wish you did?
Oh, the ability to ride well. I can ride a horse, but in the nicest way. I see people like yourself, like varying other trainers and things, and they sit on a horse, and it looks like they're not doing anything, and horses will sing a tune like you wouldn't believe. And it would be, again, it's the journey, but yeah, it would be a great thing to have the ability just to get on and go and get that tune out of them and really get that connection.
Mm-hmm. That's fair. On a scale of 1 to 10, how well can you back a trailer?
Well, when I was young and arrogant, I would have said a 9. But then I built myself a shoeing trailer to go behind my pickup, and I realized I was probably a 3. But once I got to the point where I could parallel park a trailer in a space not a lot bigger than the pickup and trailer, there's bumper hitch as well because we're not gooseneck men. So I would say I'm when I was still towing a trailer, I was up to a 9, but I'm probably a strong 7 now. I can put in most places, but yeah. It's you always think you're better than you are until you really have to get in some of these little yards and get yourself turned around, and
yeah. I don't think I'm bad at backing a trailer at all. I'm pretty darn good, but I have definitely seen people do things that I have to say, I wouldn't have even attempted that. I can't believe they did that. So
definitely. I've never been ashamed to pull forward as well and give myself an extra run at it.
Do you have a horse industry related pet peeve?
Short lead ropes, poor ground manners. I was asked how can people train their horses to stand for the dentist or behave for the dentist, and basically I said all you have to do is respect the lead rope. If you can move their feet forward and backward, left and right, you can get away with most things. But the amount of horses that can't lead, can't tie up, can't stand still, that's the worst thing for me. Feet and teeth combined, but yeah, it's the worst thing.
That's absolutely yeah. I'm right there with you. Which leads us to our next question: feral or spoiled? Which would you rather deal with?
Well, we don't really get any feral horses in that way. We've got a few. We've got Exmoors and we've got New Forest, but there's not really any feral. So it would be feral for us would be a foal in a field that's never had its halter thrown on it when it's 2, but not feral as such. So it would be spoiled. It'd have to be spoiled for me. And generally, you can get through to them. Again, this job's not about size and strength, but having a bit of weight behind you doesn't do you any harm when they're pushing and pulling on you.
Absolutely. Crunchy or smooth peanut butter?
Crunchy, 100%. No question.
Yeah, we're going to have to share some meals together, Josh, for sure. Dogs or cats?
I would argue I'm not really either, but both in the nicest way. I'm more than happy for the feral things running around my house to be the children rather than animals. But yeah, I like a dog that comes and says hello and then goes away again. I'm not one for one that'll crawl on your knee, and cats will tend to just jump on you and push you out the way. So I'd probably go dogs if you believe me into an answer.
Fair enough. I haven't even thought to ask you this. What part of England are you in?
So I'm in Cumbria, so the Lake District, up near the Scottish border.
Okay.
So if you imagine the line of the Scottish border, I'm on the west-hand side. So
okay.
I actually live in Appleby.
We'll be having...
If you've heard about Appleby Horse Fair, the gypsy horse fair that runs once a year. I don't know.
I have not.
It maybe doesn't broach that far. It's quite a famous thing over here. So yeah.
We should be having an event about an hour north of York, I think. Yeah. So it's a more eastern side, but up northern.
It's probably only about an hour from my house, because I'm just over 2 hours to get down to York. So
yeah, very cool. Bay or sorrel, or I guess chestnut, maybe I should say to you there.
Well, yeah. So I had a very, very nice bay gelding. I always said he just looked like a brown horse, though. If I had to pick, it would be a blue roan. But I've currently got a Cremello and a Palomino. So it doesn't really fit with any. I went to get a blue roan gelding and ended up with 2 Princess Barbie ponies, both fillies. So yeah.
Yep, and in a muddy country, I'm sure that they're very light colored all the time.
Yeah, disgusting.
Do you have a favorite piece of tack or horse-related tool?
My favorite piece of tack would be my saddle. I bought it secondhand, but it was actually bought from a customer of mine that had ordered it for a horse that I'd worked on for a few years, and she'd ordered it to fit the horse. But when it turned up, he was unfortunately put to sleep 2 weeks earlier. So
dang!
It sat in her living room in the sunshine for about 4 years. So one side of it's bleached slightly lighter than the other. But yeah, so when she came to sell it, I managed to snap that up. So yeah, so that's my saddle, which I do like. But a tool would be the rope head collar. A decent 9-foot lead rope and a good quality rope halter is the tool for the trade.
It's right up there. What is the best smell in the barn?
Oh, fresh hay. It's got to be fresh hay, isn't it? I was saying that I was cleaning my saddle pad the other day. Definitely wasn't doing it in the middle of my living room, and all I could smell was my Cremello. It just I was scraping it off with my little scraper, and I was just like, it smells like Dixie's. One of my kids was sat next to me. So yeah, so maybe the smell of the horse, that sort of musky smell you get off them when they've been working. But yeah, But no, I do like it. Do like it when you open a good bale of hay and you just get that waft of sweet out of it.
Oh, that's probably, that may well be our most common answer on that one, and certainly understandable. On a scale of 31 to 37, how glad are you that people don't spontaneously express themselves through song and dance?
Well, I'd say unless I've upset her, my girlfriend does something along those lines quite often. So I should probably say it's absolutely acceptable. But yeah, I'm not a massive fan of the musicals. So we'll go for
How about
a 32. We'll call it 32.
Okay. How about if we exclusively say non-loved ones, so strangers on the street who have to have a musical there once in a while, not your kids
we could leave that one alone. We're all good.
Thoughts or feelings? So are you more analytical and logical, or more emotional, intuitive, go with your gut?
I would say sometimes I think too much, but probably the thoughts creep in. But yeah, I'd have to go thoughts really.
Okay. What is your favorite or least favorite barn chore?
Now, I actually enjoy pulling ragwort. I don't know if you suffer from ragwort out there. It's a poisonous plant that grows. It's I want to say it's something similar to what you would call loco weed. So,
okay.
But it flowers bright yellow. So this time of year, there's quite a lot of it there, and you go around and pull it out the ground and take it away. But it's when I'm walking around the field, the horses tend to follow you. So you're like a little elephant train walking around your field and pulling the ragwort out. So yeah, it's probably one of the least favorite for a lot of people, but it's cathartic for me. So yeah, you can just walk around and enjoy your own thoughts.
Absolutely. I get it. Sweet, salty, or spicy?
I would say all three, probably. I quit smoking a good while ago and took up Haribo instead, which was to my detriment. So sweet would be a candy, little bags of sugary candy.
Okay. Is that like gummy bears? That's what I would think of.
Gummy bears and fizzy things, that horrible stuff covered in sugar that your kids want to eat. Well, I go through a mass of that stuff. So yeah, sweet's probably the main one. But yeah, I'm a big food fan. So
okay,
all three.
What is your favorite dinosaur or deep sea creature?
Now, I've had this answer handed to me by my little boy. It's the Mosasaurus, which is the giant sea dinosaur that eats the shark in Jurassic Park. That they're hanging.
Oh,
you ever watched that movie yet?
Yeah,
so
that's a good one.
He's 12 now, but he had a big dinosaur phase. So I can name dinosaurs that I never knew existed when I was younger. So yeah, the Mosasaurus would be the dinosaur and deep sea creature.
That is an
extra points for that one, mind.
I absolutely, and indeed you shall have them, sir. And have you ever had a UFO encounter?
No, I don't think so. I don't think I have. Like I say, I was at college during farrier, and we had some interesting nights out. So there's probably been some unexplained events, but I'm not sure if there are UFOs involved.
Okay. Well, let me tabulate your score here, Josh. You carry the 1 and the 3. I've got you at 6,203 points, which, Josh, you'll be delighted to learn this makes you our high score of all time. And so, as you may know, that entitles, yeah, isn't that something? It's the extra points on the dinosaur, I think, because that's one I had. I've seen the picture, but I would have never had the name for it. So that's awesome. So that entitles you to either an awkward silence or a genuine compliment, your choice.
So I know you're a man that loves an awkward silence, but I do not take compliments very well. So I'm going to let you compliment me so I get pushed out my comfort zone, because I'm quite happy to sit in silence for hours on end, and it doesn't bother me one bit.
Well, I'm going to give you the compliment of being sort of the gentle giant sort of a guy. Again, y'all need to get a picture of Josh here, But for someone that's done as much studying and all as he has done, and I'm sure he's going to dazzle us with his articulations on his expertise here with both farrier and equine dentistry here in a little bit. You're one of those guys that you might meet and not understand the depths of. And we haven't spent a lot of time around each other, just a few of these Zoom calls. But I really feel a kindred sort of spirit with you. I am absolutely certain we could go to the pub and have a few beers and just have a blast together, maybe get in a little trouble or something like that. So you're kind of one of those guys I would instantly sort of gravitate toward and have a good time. And I think that you're again a little bit of a surprising sort of a person, and I appreciate that a whole lot, where what you see isn't necessarily what you expect to get. So
thank you very much. Now you have to let me know if April's coming, so how much trouble we're allowed to get in when you're at the Masterson conference, because
she is coming. Yeah.
So I am traveling solo to that event, so I'll be allowed to get in more trouble than you, so that's all right.
Yeah. Well, we do hang out after the event at the house where we all are staying. So we'll definitely have a bottle of whiskey and a little bit of fun or something over there.
Definitely.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that takes us into the real interview here. So the first question for everyone is always, would you give us the 30,000-foot view of what it is that you do in the horse world?
So basically what I'm trying to do is promote equine comfort through equine oral biomechanics. So with promoting comfortable mouth, comfortable TMJ, everything works further back. I say it's like marginal gains. So everything about your horse improves that little bit. But if you add all those little improvements together, whether you are a happy hacker or a competition rider, your horse is happier in itself, therefore it can perform better for you. But the main part is the comfort for the horse, giving the horse that bit more for itself.
Okay. Well, that makes a lot of sense to me. And that's a lot of the things that I do, I would describe the same way. That none of them may be world changing, but when you add 5 kind of things together, then that does make a significant difference.
This is sort of what we go for. It's the little changes make the big differences.
Yeah. So I am gonna the TMJ. If someone were to ask me kind of what is the quest you're on knowledge wise right now, the TMJ has probably been my unicorn for a couple of years now. It's such a deceptively simple area of the body that in reality is so complex and tied to so many other things. So I definitely want to get into that with you, but I don't think I want to start there. So can we go back to the years as a farrier and how you evolved from that into the dentistry world?
Yeah. So I farrier in England is a 5-year apprenticeship, so it's 5 years worth of training before you can call yourself a registered farrier. So I trained under a fella actually in Yorkshire, not far from where you'll be doing your clinic, Hugh Dyer, who was president of the Farriers Union for a good few years and things like that. And I think I was his 42nd apprentice, and he's still training more now. So he was a big concern. He's a good fella and a big concern. He's trained some really good farriers over the years. Luckily, I moved into Cumbria, which was a very farrier light zone. So one tiny little article in the local newspaper in September when I qualified saw my books full by December. Turning quality work out and being young enough and fit enough to work day and night was always a good one. But yeah, so I was a farrier for best part of 10 years before I qualified farrier for best part of 10 years. And the dentistry just kind of appeared on my radar. It tied in with certain aspects I was looking at, certain ways of creating more comfort, making the horse happier in itself. My horsemanship journey, as I would call it, hadn't started then. It was a very matter-of-fact farrier. but there were certain things I was learning along the way, like intention behind reprimanding animals and things like that. And depending on your intention, changed how the horse went. Well, I wanted to learn more about kind of manipulating that. Manipulating is probably the wrong word, but you know what I mean. Manipulating that along the way. And so when the dentistry popped into my vision, there's a promotional video you can get by the gentleman that developed this concept. And watching that, I just thought, you know what, this is something worth investing my time and money into. Went away and started my training there, and it was 2 weeks in America, and then you'd come back and work at home and build a bit of a portfolio up, and you have to keep going back. But I'm probably skipping to the dentistry bit, but the first horse that I worked on commercially, dentist-wise, was one of my shoeing customers, because obviously they were the horses I had access to. And it was a typical low-heeled, long-toed type. And I shot it. I'd constantly been fighting to get these feet back to where you'd want them. And this thing where you're constantly saying to the farrier, the feet look long, and the farrier's constantly trying this and trying that. And so a week after I shot it, I went back out and did its teeth. And 5 weeks after that, I went back and shot it, and its feet had shrank a shoe size. It had those toes had pulled back, its heels had lifted, and its whole weight bearing had changed over its feet. And that's when I went, right, well, I've obviously invested this money well, so now we just need some numbers and some muscle memory and see what we can build from there. So yeah, that's kind of the quick story of how I got from one place to the other.
So how long were you serving two masters there and continuing to do farriery before you totally went into the dentistry?
So it would have been, when did I stop shoeing? I stopped shoeing 2.5 years ago. That'll be 10.5 years. So yeah, it was probably about, yeah. So I was a good 10.5 years in. So 8 years I was doing both. And it got to the point I was calling it a work-work balance rather than a work-life balance. And but it's sort of the way it goes. You can't give up your main money spinner to pursue your dream in that sense when you've still got to pay the bills. So, but it got to the point where people were ringing me saying I've got a shoe off, and I drive around the country, so I'm the only one in the UK doing this method of dentistry. So if I set off, it's currently Sunday night. On Tuesday morning, I leave my house and I'm driving up to Aberdeen, Inverness, all the way around the top of Scotland and back down again. So I'll be gone for 5 days. So if you rang me with a shoe off on Tuesday morning, I'd have to say, well, it's going to be next Monday before I can get to you, which as a farrier is not a very good rep. Or if you rang me saying I'd like teeth, I'd go, that's great, but it's going to be 3 months till I can get to you. And most people lose interest because you've got to catch them while the spark's there. So yeah, I had to make the decision.
Good. So how can you do a horse's teeth and have that wind up affecting the hoof? What's the connection there? What is going on?
So the connection is because it's musculoskeletal dentistry. This dentistry's fallen under many names over the years, but musculoskeletal was one of them, and I think that was one that best described it. So the free range of motion through the jaw affects free range of motion through the TMJ. That in itself affects the atlas and axis, opens joint spacings all the way through the spine, improves blood flow and muscle development, opens the shoulders, improves posture, lifts the thoracic sling. So that's once those shoulders open up, that sling can engage, lift itself up. All of a sudden, your weight bearing over your feet that's cockled back, you're now moving the point of weight bearing straight down through the middle of the hoof capsule, rather than it being set further back. Or if you've got a horse that's camped in because its shoulders are nipped in, it affects a lot of horses with hock problems. A lot of show jumpers in the US that are regularly injected are seeing injection rates from maybe 3 times a year falling to once a year following this type of dentistry.
So is that and this is actually a little bit of news for me. Is this a Spencer LaFleur's deal?
This is a Spencer one, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right. So you're the second Spencer Equine dentist trained person that we have had on here. Gretchen Dean has
You
been
had
on
Gretchen on
previous
as well,
ones.
yeah.
Okay.
So yeah,
She's something.
oh yeah, Gretchen's pretty cool, yeah. So I am trained by, not associated with, due to some technical errors, should we say, on
Okay.
both parts. So yeah. So trained by, not associated with. So I'm not on his website as it would be.
Sure. No, that's fine. We don't need to get into that. So what does, so I wanted to ask you a little bit more about this with the farrier world, because some people might not realize what that looks like and the way that legalities are handled differently in the UK. So to be a qualified farrier there, you have to become a member of the Worshipful Company of Farriers, which is the most fantastic name I have ever heard for a group in existence.
Oh, they all
And
still wear fur coats and big gold necklaces when they meet in London. So it's a full do. You'd enjoy it.
Oh, and then so there's a couple of levels to that. So
Yes.
you were a fellow or
Oh no, I was just DIP WCF, which is the sort of basic as you walk through the door level. So yeah, so you do you do an intake course at college where you do your basic forging and sort of health and safety with horses and things like that, and then you leave there and need to get an apprenticeship, and you do a month at college every 6 months, spend the other 5 months with your boss learning on the job, and every 6 months you go back. At the start of every block and at the end of every block, you do an exam. You have to score the same or higher when you go back to college that you did when you left so they sort of see your anatomical knowledge hasn't slipped away too badly. And then once you've done all your blocks, you get your final exam. You do a written exam, in-person question and answer with 2 farriers and a vet, and you do your practical exam where you have to make and shoe 2 feet, make shoes for and shoe 2 feet based on the judge's specifications. And if you manage to get through all of that, and you're only allowed to fail 3 times over the 5 years. So if you fail one of your exams at any point, if you fail more than 3 times, you're gone. Farrier is not for you. Which, to think you could have put 5 years of your life into it, to be told that's the end of that for you. So yeah, it's a difficult thing in the UK.
So I have some people in common. Grant Moon, who's probably one of the world's most famous farriers, had said this to a guy that I know that they also were under the gun in the apprenticeship program. So if they fail an apprentice out, then they'll be looked at as hard as the apprentice is. So sometimes they just kind of get this guy the hell through the program and out of their way so they can kind of worry about other things. But interesting.
Grant, I saw a demonstration with Grant. Part of farriery, you've got to do your CPD, so you're constantly doing your professional development courses. And seeing Grant make aluminium heart bars is just, again, much like saying about you riding a horse and the horse just spins a tune. Grant can do things with steel that no man should be able to do.
And forging in a Rolex too.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Turning up in a suit with a tie on and start smacking steel around. Yeah, it's pretty fantastic.
He's a character. Yeah. Let's see. I lost my train of thought here. Okay, so with regard to the feet, like here in the U.S., there's a really big line in the professional equine world between vets and some of these other people that touch on the fringes, and usually that has to do with sedation. That's where the really big line of laws is crossed. So how does that work in the UK? Like you're not a veterinarian, but most dentists are using sedation. So do you use sedation, or how does that work?
So if you were to call your vet to do teeth, they, as a rule, they sedate everything as a matter of course. So everything is sedated as they are done. The vast majority of equine dental technicians, which is what you call the dentists in the UK that are how they currently do it, so what would be the mainstream, they will, if they need to, get a lot of horses sedated. But personally, I work in, like I say, I'm a I'm a keen horseman myself, and I've been told I've got very good timing, get those releases in. As a rule, I can work with the vast majority of horses quite happily just by working on that, building that little bit of rapport with them and working away. Obviously, if you have a very nervy horse and that horse also has a lot to do, I'll sometimes say, well, maybe if we sedate it the first time, get all the work done, because you can't necessarily find a good place to stop for the horse's benefit when you've got too much in there to do for the horse's benefit, if that makes sense. So I'll sometimes say, well, sedate it the first time, get it back to a point of zero, and then we can work on the horsemanshiping it after that. But generally, I work on a lot of horses that are troubled or difficult. And again, it's that thing. I'm the exception to the rule. So people ring me when they have a problem. People ring me because they've tried everything else and, well, we'll give you a go sort of job. So yeah. So I do, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, you do tend to get a lot of bad horses. Not that there's any bad horses, but bad horses. But they're the ones that do make you look good as well. So, so.
Absolutely. That deal right there, the skill building of building rapport with the horse, that's one of those, I guess you shouldn't be judgmental, but like that's how I judge a professional. If this is a new vet that I don't know or somebody like that, and I watch them handle a horse and they can get around them and not upset them and get away with things, that's what I'm looking for right there. That's when I know that you know what you're doing. And so I really appreciate that in a person. Likewise, I've seen some people that, maybe by reputation, and then you're a little surprised at what they can't do when they actually go put hands on an animal.
And a lot of it's this as well. There's horses by nature, if you're prepared to push them in a corner and hold them there, a lot of horses will let you put them in a corner and hold them there. Whereas if you give the horse the freedom to move around and let it feel like it's not trapped, a lot of the time they'll be a lot more receptive and a lot happier about the end product.
So are you generally like just working with them in a stall or something like that? Is that
just wherever they're comfiest is the normal thing. If they're a bit of a nervy horse, I'll take them out. I'll work them on the outside in the yard or in the arena. I spend an awful lot of my time going backwards, so I'll carry on doing the work while my feet are moving. And once I get to that point where that horse gives to me, that's when I stop, let them down. I shut the spec as well. So when I'm working, the spec's open, but then as soon as I finish working, I close it, give the horse a minute, basically turn my back on the horse, go and clean my tools, and then just let the horse have a second in that kind of processing time, and then we'll go back to it. But yeah.
I'm going to throw a little bit of a hot potato your way, Josh. I've just done a webinar called Feel in the Face, and it's kind of about teaching the owner to evaluate their own horse. And I work a lot with tongues and hyoids, less so with TMJ and the pole. And I really don't do a lot in terms of releasing the TMJ directly. One of the things that I've always taught is for the average person to not ever grab their horse's tongue, because I do know how delicate the hyoid is.
100%, yeah.
Okay, so you would agree with that?
Yeah, no. I'm not a tongue puller. I'll push it out the way while I put my hand in to feel what's going on, but I'm not there's no pulling on them at all. There's certain body workers that will use a tongue release, which I have seen done. Again, it's a bit of a grey area in my mind, but there's certain modalities seem to use a tongue release. So yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not saying nobody can do it, but it's something you need to be trained on and really understand what the hell is going on, not just the random person grabbing a tongue.
I'd say there was I think we're kind of out with that trend now, but there was a trend where vets and dentists would use the tongue to hold the mouth open. So you'd get a good handful of tongue and pull it through the teeth, and the idea is the horse won't bite itself so you hold the tongue across the one side of the molars means you can get to the other side. But that's not a me trick.
So do you use a speculum in your work for the most part?
I use I float the incisors as well. So I do the incisor work. I just use my hand in the bars to keep the mouth open while I'm working. But yeah, while I'm working on the molars, I use a spec, but only open it as far as I need to. There's none of this cranking it open as far as they'll go.
Okay. And then, so I'm a little bit familiar with this through Gretchen, but so are you kind of taking the speculum off at points and then playing with the TMJ to see how everything is moving and then going accordingly, or how do you work that?
So no, as a rule, so I'll work on the incisors first, speculum on, open up, have a feel, see what I think I need to do. I will work away as I will. So jump back a step. When I first went to Spencer's course, one of his main lecturers was a fellow called Ricky, who was an ex-farrier. And I always said everything Ricky said was exactly how I would describe it if I was trying to teach me how to do it. So basically, it was everything's angles and levels. So I said it's like trimming feet, but in the mouth. So for me, it was just a click. Yeah, I can do that. That's easy. I can obviously follow it. So I will, while I'm working, it is all everything's very fluid, and I work on the mouth. Generally, I'm working anywhere between half an hour and an hour, depending on how well the horse is coping with it and behaving, and how much horsemanship I've got to put into it or not. And then once I take the spec off, I check everything's working. If I need to go back, I'll put it back on. But as a rule, it goes on and then it comes off, and that's me. That's me done, unless I think there's something wrong when I take it off. But generally, I check everything as I'm going with my hands. So yeah.
All right, it's time to pay the bills on this one, folks. Our sponsor for this episode is Bam Bam's Pebbles, natural equine dental rocks. We all know that wild horses are the model. They have the best hoof care, nutrition, and dental care possible for a horse to have. Perhaps you've heard that a Mustang will pick up pebbles and grind their own teeth, just as they fall down their own hooves on the sand and rocks. After living with the Mustangs for a few years, Bam Bam Quitting started to get curiouser and curiouser, following the horses, watching them select their gritting like a pigeon. He noticed that they were very selective about the pebbles they chose. Bam Bam picked through thousands of piles of dung and saved every pebble he could. With this experience and knowledge, Bam Bam Quitting has brought to the world the truly most natural form of equine dentistry. Our pebbles are the only natural equine dental rocks on the market. Only Bam Bam knows the right combination of igneous, sedimentary, and metamorphic stones. With our proprietary blend of pebbles, not only will your horse have an ideal dental experience, but you can even sift the dung and reuse them up to 3 times. Limestone isn't just for driveways, and granite isn't just for countertops anymore. Bring the Stone Age to your barn and let your horse chew their way to a new state of dentition. Bam Bam's Pebbles, natural equine dental rocks. They're vegan, GMO, and gluten-free. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about the TMJ a little bit, if you don't mind. That's an incredibly innervated part of the horse. We've got 2 major fascial nerves that tie in right there. And then it's also an odd joint because it doesn't just hinge open. It's not kind of a one-dimensional motion there.
It is a very strange joint to try and work around, yeah.
So how would you describe the importance of the TMJ? And I'm going to also throw in, you kind of mentioned this before, but I'll use the term the 3 pillars. So your occlusion of the molars and the incisors and how all that works with the TMJ.
Yeah. So like you say, the TMJ itself, depending on if you have a hang up in the jaw, it can work omnidirectionally. So one side can be completely locked up and the other side can be functioning relatively well, in the sense. So one of the problems I see is a lot of our modern dental practitioners are right-handed, for instance, as a rule. So you have a right-handed person working on the horse's left-hand side, so they're right as they're looking at them, and they can do a very nice job. But then on the horse's right-hand side, so as they cross over the tongue, they're still using their right hand. It limits accessibility to get everywhere in the mouth. one of the things with Spencer, again, Spencer's a borderline genius, but highly autistic and very colourful fella. But he's everything is overanalyzed and over-engineered, which is perfect for me because that's how I would do it. But he teaches us to work left and right-handed, so we work ambidextrously. So the angles we're trying to obtain when I'm doing a talk, I'll do this. So I'll do it for you. Is I'm stood here and I'm working here, but as soon as I swap sides, I automatically hold the angle. So it's as if the ergonomics of everything's being sort of built into how we're taught how to do the work. So by allowing that free range of motion and by not overdressing the molars as well, because like you said about gapping. So for me, what I find a lot of when I get to a horse the first time is there tends to be a hang up on the 1-4 arcade, which is as if you were looking straight at your horse's mouth. It's the left-hand side, top and bottom. And it's normally about 2/3 of the way back, because that seems to be the weak spot, as it would be, for where the problems seem to arise. So that in itself causes a block in the hind end, which tends to overdevelop one shoulder. So you then got a hind quarter that's not working correctly, an overdeveloped quarter on the front side, which then overdevelops the neck, so it's twisting the head slightly. And depending on the type of rider you are, if you're Mrs. Jones, as we would call it, who's riding up and down the track on a loose rein and quite happy for your horse to go any direction it wants as long as it's roughly traveling forwards, it probably never bother you a bit. But if you want your horse straight and you want it in an outline and you want it to carry itself, all these issues there, the horse then has to compensate further back for everything. So the working through the TMJ, but then, like you say, the balance from the incisors and the molars and the TMJ should be in equilibrium. So there should be occlusion running through all three. So you have a non-pressured TMJ, so it's basically floating in itself. There shouldn't be any excess pressure in there. The molars, which even with a speculum on and they're open, when your hand's in there, you can feel them pressurizing your fingers. They can't bite you as such, but there's enough pressure in those masseter muscles to close the jaw, even with the mouth open. Which is why we say you shouldn't, in our modality, we say you shouldn't work on horses under 5 because of those fissure plates in the skull. So the skull's actually made up of 3 separate plates that join together. So until they're fully ossified, we don't want to cause excess pressure because the horse has enough muscle mass to cause itself structural problems within its skull. But also the hypercementosis, or potentially EROTH, which is the reabsorption of my mind's gone blank now. Reabsorption of the molars. So because the incisors are in periodontal ligament. So if any of your listeners have ever had a tooth removed, I know I have, the teeth around it will close the gap. So that's because your teeth aren't actually fixed into bone; they're in a ligament, and they have the ability to move. So if you pressurize the TMJ is a relatively fixed point. If you pressurize the molars because you gap them by overdressing them, you're then pushing the incisors, actually forcing them out of the periodontal ligament, periodontal migration it's called, which is what causes a lot of what we would call long in the tooth horses when they get a bit of age about them. But obviously then you have, going back to the TMJ, you have the degeneration of the cartilage and everything in there through overwork or just locked work, so they're not working in a full 360-degree manner. It's just working in a omnidirectional rather than multi-directional.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So a lot of this really ties into the stuff that we do in our bit work as well. Like if you offend the tongue, then that radiates back through this whole chain into the hyoid, the TMJ, the pole. I've been talking more and more lately about how we pretty regularly will work with a horse they've called us for bit issues, but there's some kind of subtle hind end lameness that they've never been able to quite figure out. And when we solve the tongue problems, all of a sudden the hind end problems just melt away. And it's not something that that you might expect to see, because why would you think the tongue is related to the hindquarter? But all of that stuff is a lot more connected than we tend to assume that it is, I guess.
100%, yeah, definitely.
So I was going to ask you about this later, but you already brought up EOTRH. So that's basically an incisor problem with a reabsorption of the incisor. So do you see that? Like, that seems to be one of the latest trend diagnoses that we have here in the U.S. 8 years ago, no one had ever heard of it, and all of a sudden, a third of the horses have it. So
yeah. So this is one of these problems. So again, I'm because I do something different. I always say it's a bit of a witch hunt. So if I was just another dentist with opinions, that'd be fine. But because of what I offer is slightly different, I always tend to offend the masses. But I always say, if you're not offending somebody, you're not doing your job. So, in my opinion, the EROTH, as much as it is a reabsorption, it's not necessarily reabsorption. It's the gums receding or the teeth being pushed out the periodontal ligament. Now, you say that only started about 8 years ago. About 12 years ago, every horse had hypercementosis, which was something very similar, with those teeth being forced out of that periodontal ligament. But it seems to have migrated from one till the other. For the farrier side of it, it's a bit like talking about navicular, because there was a lot of that was the common ailment for all horses until they decided navicular didn't actually exist, and then it was lower palmar heel pain. So they just kind of renamed it and moved it along, so it was something fresh. So I think an awful lot of the EROTH, an awful lot of the hypercementosis, and the imbalance through the mouth is caused by overdressing of incisors with power tools, is one of the opinions. I only use hand tools, so I can remove as much tooth as you can with a Dremel, but I'm sweating when I do it, so I know how much I'm taking off. And again, they'll throw me under the bus for commenting that, because that's one of the stipulations for British equine dentists. You all have to be trained in the use of power tools. But yeah, so I personally, I feel it's seeing your horse every 6 months, and the use of power tools is overdressing molars, which is pressurizing the TMJ and the incisors, and that's what causes TMD, which is deformation of the TMJ joint, and then EROTH / hypercementosis / periodontal migration at the other end. But also, even if it was done well on both sides, but because there tends to be an imbalance between your 1-4 and your 2-3 arcades as well, so you're not getting even movement of each side. But again, this is only what I see in my small slip of the world that I work in. So
let's talk about that a little bit. With the overdressing, because this is one of the statements I've had for a while. I do feel like equine dentistry, at least here in the States, is kind of one of the weak links that we have in terms of horse husbandry. I don't think there's as many highly trained people as we have a need for, and so you wind up with a lot of substandard care. And we have the same problem in the farrier world. My thought has always been, like, the difference between a really good trim or shoe job and a pretty okay one is probably about a millimeter somewhere or other, and the difference between a really good one and a not too good one is probably 2 or 3 millimeters. So there's not a whole lot of difference there. But if you have a not so good one, in 6 weeks that grows back. If you remove a few millimeters too much in the teeth, that can be a 2-year kind of a journey before that rights itself. So that's always been one of those things that makes me kind of scared about the dentistry side of this, is that if we 100%, in fact, I'll candidly share with you here. I do my own horses. I have for about 15 years, farrier wise. And I used to take notes. I take pictures every job and try to improve. And probably like you, I'm good enough, but I'm no master, and I probably never will be. But one of my first notes that really helped me was, it's not a harvest. You get paid for what you leave, not for what you take, sort of thing.
I like that.
And I think in the dentistry world, that's probably a sound advice as well.
100%. So I have, there's a big movement to barefoot over here. And I think an awful lot of people don't necessarily ride the horses enough to warrant shoes. I personally, I'll put my hands up and say I'm one of them as well. I'm quite happy for my horses to be in boots. If I actually pulled my finger out and rode for any great length of time, I'd tack a set of shoes on them. But so I have an awful lot of customers that just can't find what they're looking for in the way of a trimmer. They have a lot of farriers that are maybe a little too gung-ho for their liking, and they can't find it, so they'll trim their own. So once a year, when I go and do teeth, I'll sort of pick the feet up and give them a trim and just point out what I can see. And I always say it is just like a bad haircut. If you ignore it for long enough, it'll grow back and it'll be fine. And generally, if it bleeds, that's when you need to stop, and that's far enough. So, but yes, like you say, with the teeth. So if you overdress because the teeth erupt as individuals, so as much as the eruption rates slow down, if you overdress one tooth, it will hyper erupt to fill the gap because it wants that occlusion. And teeth work harden. So as they're rubbing on themselves, the secondary dentin that's inside the enamel gets pressed into itself, which toughens the tooth itself up. The problem is, if you have a tooth that hyper erupts, it hasn't had a chance to work harden. So the hyper erupting teeth wear away faster. So, but until they actually get something to work against, they can't build that sort of 5-10 millimeters of work hardened tooth that's filtering through. So if you were to do your horse's teeth every 6 months and you overdress them every 6 months, and every 6 months they're then hyper erupting and they're not work hardening, so even when they are wearing naturally, they're over wearing naturally. All of this adds in. So rather than you having a horse at 33, 34, 35 with a set of useful teeth, you've got horses in their mid-20s that teeth are falling out due to lack of clinical crown. And obviously, you can argue, well, are we finding this more because we're looking at it more, or are we finding it more because 20 years ago is when the mainstream use of power tools came into effect? There's probably a chicken and egg in there somewhere, because obviously 20 years ago, not as many people had their horses' teeth done. I know 30 years ago when I was a boy, our horses' teeth didn't get done, probably 35 years ago. It just wasn't one of those things you did. And to think it's got from that point to where I know professional EDTs in my area that are seeing horses every 4 months. And then people will ring me and say, oh, it was done 2 months ago and it's due in 2 months. When can you come out? And I'm like, well, probably about 8 months' time. Why? And they're like, well, no, he needs seen every 4 months. I'm like, oh, I can pretty much guarantee he doesn't. I'm happy to come, but if he needs seen that often, he's got major problems. There is no real reason that he would need seen like that. But part of the problem I see is the use of power tools, and because they're looking at teeth differently to how I look at teeth. I look at motion and function, whereas they're looking at pathology. So by dealing with pathology, you're changing molar angles, which then changes how the orbit of the jaw works. So you're compounding and creating a problem that you're trying to fix. So it goes from a year to 6 months to 4 months and sort of creeps on. And again, I'm not trying to make myself look better by slating other people, but to point out what I do, I need to point out what they do and the differences.
Yeah, well, I mean, if all it does is it brings awareness and more people start paying attention and start noticing some of these patterns, then maybe we get to a better place altogether. Would you say? Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I always tend to say, I'm not saying they're wrong, but I know I'm right. So you can make your own mind up based off that. So,
yeah.
Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, I have a few, Olympians and world-renowned veterinarians of Olympic teams that I will confidently say they're wrong in what they're saying about bidding this horse up and so forth. So I know right where you're coming from, and it's fair enough. So what do you say then that kind of a 1 year annual schedule is a more appropriate schedule? That's what the average horse should be on, unless there really is something abnormal going on.
100%. So again, you have much like trimming feet. Like, so if you are barefoot, your horse in the wild will trim its feet every day as it's walking through the sand and walking through the mud and brushing rocks, and that's fine. And you need a shorter trimming cycle because you don't want the feet to get long, because when they get long, then you're weakening them, and so they're constantly either in having a lever effect or being weakened while you're working through. So a shorter trimming cycle for feet. But for teeth, I tend to say, once I have set them up and they're working correctly, now, if there's a lot wrong with them or a lot to do with them, I might say, well, I'll see you in 6 months. And then after that, it'll be early cycle. But once I've set them up, they can self-regulate to a point. So once the teeth have a full range of motion, they can rub on themselves. They are built to self-wear. But the problem is, because we don't keep them naturally, because we have laser level bowling green square paddocks with white picket fencing around them, we don't give them the opportunity to look after themselves. So I tend to say once a year. Now, if you are an eventer, for instance, I will say you want the teeth done in kind of a month before the start of the season, because 2 months before that, if you are working them and you actually know you can feel what your horse is doing, you're going to notice it falling back a little bit. So I tend to say probably 10 months, 9 or 10 months, you're looking at some issues are starting to fall back. But by the time you've got over your winter and your quiet period, and then I come and do its teeth again, you're ready and the horse is fit and you're back into eventing season and it's fine. For the standard everyday happy hacker or play about, it's absolutely fine. Yeah, once a year is more than enough.
So I kind of gather that you would agree with me that some of the biggest problems our horses face are us loving them to death and trying to care for them maybe a little too well and wrapping 100%. Them in bubble wrap and not letting them just be a horse.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm not a rugger of horses. Mine are young enough not to need them. I'm not a rugger. As I am a dentist and a farrier, mine very rarely get their feet done and probably miss dental appointments more than any other horse that I see. I'm sure yours don't get half as much training as they should get, and they just get dragged out and looked at as and when you get the opportunity. But yeah, it's mine are just kind of left to it. As long as they've got water and grass to eat, they're kind of good to go.
Yeah, guilty as charged there. So what about, you mentioned that y'all don't mess with horses less than 5. So how does that work? And are there no cap extractions, no wolf teeth extractions or anything going on? Or how do y'all address that?
So again, as a rule, caps will fall out on their own, because if you imagine this is the natural horse out in the wild, these things are going to deal with themselves. So unless there is a problem, or unless you find a problem, I wouldn't really want to have a look at your horse till it's 5 years old. So when it turns 5, it's got a full set of adult teeth, because your first 3 on each arcade, your incisors are all deciduous, so they have baby teeth, fall out, grow back in, and your first 3 molars. Your last 3 molars are constant, but your first 3 are deciduous teeth. So until it turns 5, depending on the breed, your hotter bloods do tend to mature slightly faster. Your colder bloods, so if you've got big drafts, they can be 7 before they get a full mouth of adult teeth. If you've got some fire-breathing Arab, it could be 4 and it'll have a full set of adult teeth. It just depends a lot on the horse itself. And this is another thing why I say about aging horses. I say if I tell you it's 10 and it's anywhere between 8 and 12, I'm quite happy. To me, that's an accurate sort of assumption of age, because they do mature at different rates. So I don't really want to see anything until it's 5. Wolf teeth, again, this is one of those funny areas. Unless it's causing a problem, I don't really see a problem with having wolf teeth in a horse's mouth. An ex-girlfriend of mine had a 33-year-old when he died, and he had a wolf tooth on his one arcade that if you put your finger on it, you could actually move it. And he used to sit and he'd put it on the edge of the stable door, but he'd jump 1.40 meters, and he was absolutely fine. It never caused him any problems. It obviously there was something there, but it never caused an issue that would warrant pulling it out or getting in there. As you know, the palatine arteries and things that run around them, and there is no surgery without risk. But as for removing teeth, in the UK, Veterinary Surgeons Act 1976 says only a veterinary surgeon can perform surgery, and the definition of surgery is anything that involves blood. So if I need to pull a tooth and that makes it bleed, you can turn around and go, well, I don't know what you did to my horse, but you made it bleed, and that's so. Again, being the witch in the witch hunt, I'm the one that tries to say, if you have a problem, refer it to your vet. And if I have, I'll quite often find a horse with a loose incisor and things like that, and I'll just say, bring your vet, and they'll come and tiny incision and pop that tooth out like it's no man's business. It'll be fine.
Well, I would say too, unless your horse has a kind of disproportionate mouth, the bit shouldn't really be anywhere near wolf teeth.
This is the other argument. Bit seats. I still do not understand why a horse would need a bit seat. And this is another rostral profiling. They've actually changed the name. So this is another one of those EROTH and things. You change its name to make it sound better. So bit seats, where you shave off the first, sort of angle the first tooth at 45 degrees so the bit doesn't catch the teeth. And I would argue that's more rider error than it is anything to do with the horse or why you would file them down. I do not understand. I've never got that bit.
So I would say I completely agree with you there. I would say there are two different kinds of bit seats, and that would be the sort that I don't see any point in, and it's the most common. Where I do find some utility is, we say about half of horses that I deal with have something we call flabby cheeks, which is basically just loose gum tissue. So if you put your thumbs down there, you can easily push gum tissue back. And those first premolars, they're kind of shaped like the bow of a ship. They have a very pointed front corner on them. And so if I have a horse that has flabby cheeks, and if we pick up on the bit, we're pushing tissue back into the sharp front point of that tooth. Those would be the ones, but I don't want to see occlusion taken off of the top side of the tooth. I just want a little rounding of the front where we don't have a point to push tissue into.
You're more dealing with a sharp point than actually changing the tooth itself.
Yes. Yeah. So that sort of a bit seat is the type I would be in favor of. But again, if you have,
you've just introduced something else I'm going to have to look for now while I'm working around.
Oh yeah.
So, yeah.
And for that reason, because we know if the tissue's loose, it's going to move, and if it's going to move, it's going to hit something sharp, and so that's not going to be comfortable. So we're just trying to prevent that state of discomfort. But if we have really tight gums, then absolutely no harm, no foul. Yeah. So I was going to ask you about extractions. You kind of just answered that. One thing I wanted to ask you about, back to the farrier world, like that may be one of the biggest hot potatoes in the horse industry right now. Some of the hard and fast opinions on that, and one of the benefits is that I get to travel a lot. And I think environment has a whole lot more to do with what your horse's feet are like and what they need than I think a lot of people. So like me, you're in an area where I would assume it's fairly wet, and you kind of have softer, muddier type soils.
Yep.
And a horse that's in the desert is not going to have the same kind of hoof that a horse where you or I live. And we have no rocks where you may have rocks where you are. So there would be some hard surface in there, but we've got nothing hard anywhere. They're just in soft ground all the time. So that has its effect on the hoof capsule.
Definitely. So we're currently in a bit of a drought, as the media keeps trying to tell us, which I think in South England it hasn't rained for about 45 days, which we've had splatters of rain, but not really anything. So our normally quite boggy ground is we're quite clayey where we are, so it turns from soft mud to rock basically when it gets baked. So we get both sides of the coin. But yes, 100%. And as a farrier, a lot of what we deal with, because our ground is quite changeable, is you'll have feet that you're fighting with all winter, and then spring will come and it'll dry up a bit, and you'll go, these feet are looking great, and you're making real progress. And then autumn will come and the feet will go to crap again. And then you spend all winter chasing them. Where a lot of the time people just don't understand it. It is a natural thing. This is part of it. It's not only the ground conditions, it's the quality of the grass they're getting, it's the nutrients they're getting out of the grass, whereas winter they're eating hay and they're not getting that protein and all those minerals that would naturally be in that fresh grass that's coming through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but they're also kind of built for that cycle. That's one of my sort of equine dentist mentors is Dr. Jeff Tucker. I don't know if you're familiar with him at all. So that's one of the things he talks about, that we now have like the Cushing's disease, and I forget what they call it, PID or something like that. But we also don't have horses that cyclically put on fat and then lose fat in the winter. We keep them too fat all the time.
No, I do.
So,
mine look like their skin's about ready to stretch at the minute, but come winter they look like a bag of bones. Much the same. People hate the way I keep horses, and it's quite nice that I'm not on a livery yard anymore. But yeah, I like my horses to get fat, and I like them to get thin again. And I feel like it's that natural way of it. They're meant. That's how their bodies should be, and it does them the world of good.
Yeah, their metabolism should cycle with the seasons as nature intended, rather than us again loving them to death and interfering with a natural cycle there that has a purpose to play.
I think what happens is, even if a lot of the time, even if horses lose weight in winter, they get to the point where people think they're losing too much, but because they're so fat in summer, they lose weight and get down to what I would consider a reasonable weight. But then people start thinking they're losing weight and start feeding them up again. So yeah, what is become the norm, I think, is creeping too high, in my opinion, in regards to body weights for horses and condition and things like that. So.
Yeah, people look at a body condition score 7 and think that horse is perfectly fit, and they would look at a 3 and lose their mind. But those two positions are equal distance from ideal.
That's the problem. Yeah, that is the problem.
I had a customer one time. He had this paint mare, and she was sort of like the old hound dog kind of. You could feed her a whole bunch, and she would still look like she was starving the next day. So she was being well fed but worked. And he kept complaining, I wanted to see you put some more weight on my horse. I'm like, well, if I keep riding her, I can't really do that, because I'm going to founder her if I feed her much more than I'm feeding her right now. And I'd rather her look skinny than permanently mess something up, And so he kept on about it. And he was one of those guys, he looked like he had a tapeworm. He probably weighed like 140 pounds or something like that, even though he was about 5'10". And so then I made the comment, like, does your wife feed you? Like, I bet if you took your shirt off, I'd see some ribs on you too right now. Are you underfed, or are you just a small guy that kind of has that sort of build, So I don't think he appreciated that too much, but he left me alone about it afterwards. Oh, okay. I wanted to talk a little bit about the ethical side of things and some of the stories going on, because a lot of that is kind of, seems from my perspective at least, to be evolving out of Europe with some of the studies going on. And so, like you mentioned earlier about the rope halter, 15 years ago in Europe, that would have been referred to as an ethological halter. And now I'm seeing a pretty good pushback against it as it being the cruel and too harsh thing. And now the pivot is back toward the web halters. And so do you see that stuff?
Yeah, no, I see it all the time. And I do have people that pull faces sometimes. If I have to get my halter out, I always carry one in the van with me. But generally, if I need to get my halter out, it's because your horse has got no manners, and the fluffy thing that you've got on it with a 3-foot lead rope attached to the end is no blinking use. So, like I say, I wouldn't say they're a bad thing or a good thing. It is purely a communication tool. So if your horse isn't prepared to communicate, sometimes you've got to shout at them. And if you're going to shout at them, well, I'd rather shout and know it was listening, as in, and I'll always start small. I'll hold the knot of the rope, and I'll wiggle my hand and ask for a backward step, and it's like you're working with a colt, as it would be. But some of these things are 17-hand warm bloods, and you're going, well, it doesn't actually understand how to step away from me when I'm working. But by the time I've done an hour's worth of dentistry, this thing's like a farrier on a string, and you can send it anywhere you want, and it's listening to you, and it's amazing the difference it'll make. Same with trimming feet. When people used to bring me youngsters, as a farrier, you'll spend half an hour working on this horse and then still try and trim its feet, which is probably the worst thing for it. And then next minute, they've replaced you with somebody £5 cheaper, and you've spent an hour trimming a horse for next to nothing. Whereas I got to the point where I was like, actually, I'm just going to charge you, and I'm going to spend half an hour. And if I get its feet done, great. And if I don't, great. And I'd always tell them at the start. And there was one in question. It was 18 months old. It had only had a head collar on twice. It never been tied up. Never had its feet picked up. And this thing must have been 14 too, if it was an inch. And I spent half an hour, and I didn't trim it. I picked all its feet up. I picked all its feet out, but it took a lot of doing. And when I finished, I walked over and I tied it up. And the mother and daughter were like, "No, you can't tie it up. It doesn't tie up." And I'm like, "It'll be fine." And it moved back and got to the end of the lead rope and took a step forwards. And then it did the same, and it did it 3 times. And the third time, it moved forwards away from pressure, and it just cocked a leg and stood there. And I went, "There you go." I said, "How much can I charge you for teaching your horse to tie up?" And it is purely just, your horse should have some manners, and it takes nothing to put manners into them. Nothing at all.
Yep.
But I always say a good rope halter makes a difference.
I completely agree. That's pretty much what I use all the time, and I would be lost without it. If I ever go back to the nylon web halters, like I can tell the difference immediately. You know, this is like using a dull knife or something. Like, just why the hell do I have to?
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. But like I say, I'm a keen horseman anyway. I enjoy, as much as you don't want to work with difficult ones all the time, getting a difficult one in a day is quite nice, because you can make that progress, and you kind of get a bit of self-worth about yourself when you're working with them, and it's great. But I've just put myself, well, in a month's time, I'm going on a groundwork clinic. I'm taking one of mine, and my horses are 6 and 7, but I'm going to go and spend 4 days doing groundwork just to sort of iron some kinks out and get myself back to sort of fine-tune myself and my horse a little bit, because I feel like groundwork is one of those important things. You should, if you can't do it well, you don't deserve to be getting any further on. And for me, groundwork while I'm working is a massive thing.
I love that you're still out there learning and trying to pick up some new things here and there, and that speaks well of you. It really does. The other ethics thing I wanted to bring up, and I think this comes from a podcast I did with Dr. Ben Sykes, and I really need to call him up and do another with him again. But he's one of the world experts on equine ulcers. And
I loved that podcast. That was one of my favorite ones of yours, actually.
Well, thank you. That's the most downloaded one we've had. It was really a good one. He's a neat guy. I like him a lot. But he mentioned in that podcast, I believe, that I think it was some Scandinavian countries had done studies where they were finding evidence of trauma from bits in the mouth of 30 to 40% of horses. And I put my hands in the mouth of a whole lot of horses. That's an astronomically high number to me. So I was kind of curious what your thoughts would be on that. Do you see that many injuries, or is this they've changed a definition to make it so broad that it now encompasses everything and jacks the numbers up, or did they just ride really bad in the Scandinavian countries? What do you think is going on there?
So I would, yes to all of the above. I would argue. So it depends. So Scandinavian countries, are we talking about your gated horses, where they're riding them and they've got a lot of contact on them and they're pushing them through, so potentially they're riding them hard and using those bits to hold them in to get that gait if they're throwing gates, because I know they have a lot of gated ponies. For me, one of the great things about what I do and where I am is horsemanship. I'm sure in the US is a lot more mainstream, but over here it's a bit like wearing a cowboy hat and cowboy boots. You get a funny look every now and then. But the vast majority of my customers are that way inclined. They want tack that is better fit for the horse. They want to be able to communicate better. They are doing the training and they're working their horses and they have a lot more time. And I see it's quite black and white actually between the horses that I'm trimming as a barefoot trimmer now and the horses that I'm doing dentistry on. you could nearly separate them into two different species. So you have these really well-mannered, well-trained horses, and you have these everyday web head color horses. So I would argue the vast majority of people I do work for dentistry-wise are well-educated riders with well-educated horses. So I will probably see less in the way of bit injuries, if that makes sense. And I'm not saying there's not negative aspects to all of these things, and I'm not saying there's not plenty of people that wear a cowboy hat that shouldn't be sat on the back of a horse at all. But I think as a whole, the industry I work in here, I think I'm quite blessed with the customers I have and the horses I work with, really. So yeah, it would be a difficult one for me to see. But yeah, I mean, it also depends what you classing as an injury. I mean, you can get a bit of bruising. Slap myself on the back of the hand, schoolboy error. My horse managed to stand on its bloody McCarthy reins one day, and it actually cut the corner of its lip because it threw its head and panicked, and that was completely my fault. And when you feel like an absolute jackass for it. But in the same breath, you could call that one, but that's one in 44 years. So I don't know how that's going through, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, I don't see them in anywhere near those rates. I don't know exactly what it would be, but it's probably more in the like 3 to 5% range for me. It's certainly not a routine thing. And man, if I were seeing it in 4 out of 10 horses, like I don't know if I could get myself out of bed to go to work in the morning. That would be a pretty rough.
You'd be developing
gig.
a bitless bridle rather than developing a bit video, wouldn't you? That's the thing.
Yeah, I mean that'd be hard to face. So okay, well I was curious about that. Well, Josh, I want to be respectful of your time as it is quite late in the evening for you there. I don't have a whole lot else to ask you here. Is there anything you want to get off your shoulders about the bit world? Do you have some advice or the equine dentist world or farrier world? You got some advice for us, or hey, y'all stop this, or anything like that?
Again, it's just teach your horse a bit of manners. Listen to you on bits would be a good one, because I put a comment on. It was a Facebook post you put on, and my other half is quite conventional with her riding. She actually, so I was told to say thank you very much, because she sat in on your webinar the other day and she said it was absolutely amazing. I have got the download. I will be doing the next one, because I wasn't available on Friday night. But yeah, she really enjoyed it. But yeah, so we dropped her bit. I think we dropped it 3 holes on each side on her horse, and he's not a bad horse, but boy, it did not make a difference. And when you drop it and you think 3 holes on each side is a lot, and she to the point where she was saying she was like, I can't get on this horse, I'll have no control. And I was like, just get on, it'll be fine. easy to say when you're not the one climbing on it, but yeah, no, it made a big difference. But yeah, it just tie your horses up. That's one of the things. For a farrier, it is, if you want your farrier to look at your horse needs to be able to tie up. Because if it can't tie up when he's not there, it's definitely not going to tie up when he is there. When they are there, he or she. For the dentistry stuff, it is, just a little bit of respect on the rope, and that's about it. Try and fit in when they ring you, which would be a good one as well, because especially if they travel all around the country, is saying, I can't do today, can you do tomorrow? It's, well, I've only driven 5 hours to get to you, so that sort of thing. That sort of thing makes a difference.
Well, I could completely stand by that. I think a horse being able to be tied is that is just as basic a skill as you can have. So that they should all do that. I like them to hobble and all kind of stuff, and be okay with being bored and being
hobbling
restricted.
is something I would very much like to teach my horses, but there's nobody over here that I would say can hobble well enough. There's a couple of trainers that come over that I know do, but if they're only over for a few weeks. I'd also like to lie one down. I've watched your video, but again, I don't think I have the abilities to do such things. So
yeah, the hobbling, we'll have a video on that. I haven't finished editing it and all and putting it together, but I'll definitely hook you up with that once we get it done. Laying a horse down probably is one of those things that not just anybody needs to do. I think I have a disclaimer. I'm sure you're athletic enough and all, and I kind of mentioned that, like you need to be able to move your feet and get out of the way because things can go sideways and all when you do that. Anyway, well, Josh, I really do appreciate the conversation with you.
No, thank you very
looking
much.
forward to having a beer with you or some whiskey. Maybe instead. That is my one regret. I wish I had a month I could just drink my way around the UK, because I do like some Isla Scotch. That is absolutely my jam. But
yeah, you're a peaty man, aren't you? You like the peaty,
yes,
and the smoky stuff. So
yep.
I'll make sure I throw a bottle in the van when I come down, and I'll bring one down for you to have I'll share
wonderful.
a glass with you. Yeah,
absolutely. No. Well, thank you again for your time. It's been most enlightening, and we will have links. I didn't mention that. So Josh lost his Facebook page here not too long ago and has created another one. So we'll have a link to the new one so he can help rebuild his following. And I know he has started.
It's the exact same names and everything. It's just that there's next to nothing on it. So I keep adding more bits as it goes along. But unfortunately, I'm one of these people. I love my job, but I hate all that business side of my job. I like actually doing the work. I don't like answering the phone or ringing people back or all these things. So.
Well, I like the concept, the van talks that you're doing, and you kind of have that downtime anyway, so you might as well shoot a 2-minute video while you're driving to the next place.
Yeah,
so,
that's the one. No, they're not too bad.
I like that. Yeah. So, all right. Well, thank you, man.
Well, that's
I really
excellent. Thank you very much
time.
for having me on. I really appreciate it.
And tell the missus I'm sorry to keep you up late in the evening like this.
Oh no, it's all good. Well, she, as cheeky as she is, she told me I had to have a whiskey before I came on, so I'd be funny. I was like, oh, thanks. It's nice to know that I'm not funny without a whiskey, isn't it? So there you go.
It's a solid trick. I had coffee instead, giving me a little perk in the middle afternoon here. But
there you go. Perfect. Well, thank you very kindly.
We'll see you next week for another episode of Adult Onset Horsemanship. I've been your host, Daniel Dolphin.